Hi, my name is Laura Davish. I'm an associate professor in the HCI Institute and the Heinz College at Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm excited to share with you some important findings about diversity and inclusion in open source. My collaborators in this work are Jim Herbslab, Bogdan Vasilescu, Sophie Hulian-Q, and Hanna Fruklog, also at Carnegie Mellon. Our motivation in researching gender gaps in the world of open source was to understand how an environment that prides itself on technology access and collaboration might be unknowingly closing its doors on women. It's widely known that women are underrepresented in the technology industry, but unfortunately open source is no exception, and in fact it's even worse. So while 23% of US programmers are women, women make up less than 5% of contributors to public repositories on GitHub. So we set out to learn more about how women become integrated into digital infrastructure projects and why this happens so rarely. We used a mixed methods approach in our work, combining quantitative trace data analysis with qualitative in-depth interviewing with embedded contributors. In our interviews, we talked to 23 contributors to projects in the PyPy ecosystem, 11 men and 12 women, including 3 trans women. And we had them trace their contribution history on a particular project, starting with their initial interaction, talking about changes in participation over time, and positive and negative experiences they had while contributing. So what did we learn? Well, our quantitative analysis suggests that women disengage earlier. We did a survival analysis of trace data from a balanced sample of 60,000 open source developers on GitHub. And this analysis suggested that after 1 year, 70% of the men were still active, while only 60% of the women were. Our qualitative results suggest that this may be because of unique motivations for contribution and negative experiences that women face while participating. So in terms of motivation, we found that women were invested in supporting the user community around a project. They spent time understanding user needs through interaction with the community. They were very motivated to respond to help requests through issue submissions, and they advocated for users in the project level discussions about the project direction and design decisions. So they were generally more invested in ensuring that the project served the needs of the community and offering support to other developers. But they faced unique challenges while doing so. So paramount among these were the visibility pressures they faced from being the only woman on a project where they contributed to. As one participant described, for a long time I was the only female on my projects, so most of the time I was uneasy and I felt under pressure to prove myself. They also dealt with excessive scrutiny on their contributions and their ideas. As one participant described receiving hundreds of comments every time she would make a code contribution to a certain project. She said, I literally counted like 50 up to 100 comments and nitpicking on things that didn't matter, and then people telling me how to rewrite the code. So this was frustrating and led to decreased participation over time. Women also faced sexist language and behavior that reinforced the idea that developers were predominantly men and only needed to cater to the other men in the environment. Finally, women also went on maternity leave and had to reduce or discontinue completely their involvement in the project that they talked about because of this. So maternity leave reduced their availability and made continued engagement more difficult. So how can project maintainers and owners support the involvement of women on their projects? Well, first we suggest recognizing non-code contributions, like serving the user community through formalizing the user advocate role and valuing community outreach. We also recommend supporting relationship development among contributors through things like mentorship programs and greeting newcomers on a project and providing community spaces where people can interact directly. Finally, we think it's important that project owners and maintainers should try to provide safe spaces for seeking help and vetting contributions that are free from sexist behavior. If open source leaders make these kind of social and structural changes, then open source can thrive as an inclusive space for developers to productively collaborate and support each other with mutual respect. In fact, better diversity on these projects should mean higher quality of the code that's produced and greater creativity and performance overall, as lots of research supports this. This project is part of a larger research initiative led by the Ford Foundation and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, focused on filling in the gaps in our understanding of how digital infrastructure is built, maintained, and sustained. If you want to learn more, you can check out our project website at diversityiinoss.org. Thanks so much for listening.